with Mike L. Murphy, successful animator. And all of you animation students, you're going to love this interview. This guy's made his career around animation and has a website called Successful Animators. So his focus is helping you once you've graduated how to work in your field and have a fantastic career. So he's going to share with us some ideas both upon graduation and in the study itself and how to get into a good program and just his experiences. So you can kind of hear from somebody that's working in the field and can give you some of their real world story. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
It'd be great to just hear a little bit of your history so the students kind of get to know where you're from, what you've been doing in your career, maybe starting with that and what your focus is. Like, why did you create this website, Successful Animator?
Gotcha. Well, my dad was Walt Disney, so I was just born, born right into it. I was just a lucky kid. No, I was raised and born in Northern California, close to Hollywood, but still 7 hours away. So it wasn't like, it was too far. And my whole life I'd been a filmmaker. My dad bought one of the first video cameras back, I think in 1984. And after about 5 months, I broke it because I was using it all the time. And we only had one VHS tape. This is back before digital. So I'd had to record it on the long play, which was 12 hours, so I could make 12 hours of film. And then because he wouldn't get me another tape, I would just go and rewind and keep recording. And that's basically how I learned filmmaking. But during that time, I realized it was a whole lot easier to just get a whiteboard and start drawing on it and take a frame and then erase it, which is basically very crude animation because it was easier than getting all the neighborhood kids, to assemble it so we can make a movie. So on that route, I had some drawings up on the wall, and I was really lucky. This was right after Lion King came out, so animation was just like, finally it was a grown-up business. And one of the guests at this wedding we had in our backyard, she saw my drawings. She's like, "Hey, by any chance you want to be an animator?" I was like, and my whole goal was always to be a live-action film director, which is what I do now. But I was like, I guess. And she's like, "Okay, well, it's really great. My brother is an animator at Disney," which he was actually, he was a cleanup artist. But everybody uses the word animator to be everything. But there's actually about 38 different jobs within the industry of animation. So I decided, yeah, I really would like to go down and get a tour of Disney. So I called this guy up, his name was Alex, and I'm like, "Hey, my name's Mike Murphy," back then, yeah. So, back then I was really shy, and I called him up, and he's like, yeah, come down for lunch, no big deal. So my mom drops, he's like, "Next time you're in LA." So I'm like, "Mom, when are we going?" She's like, "When do you want to go?" "Next week." Okay, great. So we get in the car, we go down to LA, and I didn't know anything, and this was in the days before the internet. If I wanted to find out how to be an animator. Remember, the only thing back then, this was probably 91 around this time. I was about 15 or 16. I was 16 actually. And I went to the local library. I grew up in Los Gatos, California, and there was one book on animation. It was really about the Walt Disney story. So it didn't tell me anything about how to be an animator. And I found this great book by Preston Blair, which if you haven't read it, please read it. Cartoon Animation, Preston Blair. So great. So I got that, and I started doing flipbooks and stuff, but that was really it. I couldn't get any more information. Nobody could help me out. Nobody knew anybody as an animator. So luckily I go down and I have lunch with this guy, Alex, and he shows me around, and this is when they're doing Aladdin. So I'm literally a 16-year-old kid walking around the Walt Disney Animation Studios, and they're animating Aladdin. And I'm just like, it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I remember there was a guy in the hallway on a computer, and I'm like, "What's that?" He's like, "This is a computer." This is back in the days where it was this big old Silicon graphics machine. Now I animate feature stuff on my laptop. But back then you needed this $100,000 machine to do it. And he goes, "Check this out." And he pushes play, and it was this wireframe animation of the lion, or I guess it was a tiger head or a lion head. Remember out of the sand it comes, and it's like, "He shall pass," or whatever. And he showed me that, and I'm like, "That looks cool." He goes, "Yeah, but computer animation, it'll never take off." Who would have known? But I decided at that point that I really want to be an animator. And so I asked Alex, I said, "What do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, There's only one thing you can do. You got to go to Cal Arts. And back then, Cal Arts, there was Cal Arts and Sheridan. Those are the only two animation colleges in the world at that time. Now every, the local community college teaches animation, but back then it was those two. And I was like, well, all right, well, I'm gonna go to Cal Arts. That was just that. Except I was 16 and I had 1 year of high school left. But I don't like to be told no, so I go home. I make my portfolio over the weekend. I send it into Cal Arts. 2 days later, I call them up. They're like, we're full. We're not accepting anyone else this year. And I was like, well, I'm going there. I'm a stubborn little bastard. I'm going there. And they're like, okay. So 2 days later, I get a big envelope, or actually a little envelope from them. And I'm like, oh. And I open it and I read it. It's like, dear Mr. Murphy, we would like to inform you. And I'm like, oh, this is a rejection letter, right? And then I keep going. And it's like, that you are accepted. And, I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I go to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I got accepted to college. And he's like, no, you got another year of high school to go. And luckily my mom was a kindergarten teacher and she's always pushed me to be creative. So she's on one side there and going, let him go. And he's like, no, he's got to finish high school. So eventually they love me and they supported me and they let me go off to college. So I started Cal Arts when I was 17. And at Cal Arts, I was really fortunate because all of my teachers, and I'm going to give a shout out to Larry White, if Larry White's watching, all of my teachers were Disney animators. And you got to remember back then there was Disney. There was nothing else. And there was 2D. The 3D didn't exist yet, or computer animation, not the little 3D glasses. So because of all these great people that were teaching it, or that were working at Disney in their day, and then they drive up to Cal Arts, which was about 35 minutes north at night, they teach, I was able to get all this great information on the classic Disney style animation, and I was drawing back then. And then fast forward to when I was just graduating. I had a job offer to go work 2D at Disney, doing in-betweening, and I was like, this is great. And then John Lasseter, nobody knows who the guy is, he comes to Cal Arts and he previews a movie called Toy Story, and everyone's like, we're these snot-nosed little animation students. We think we're so smart, and we're like, oh, it's a CG full computer movie. That's gonna be sucky, yeah. Well, it was really good. And at that point, I'm just sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is the future of the movie industry. I mean, this is it. And I just remember there was this shot of Woody underneath the car where he's talking to Buzz, and it was the first time I'd seen a character really act. I mean, you'd seen broad, general acting, but it was the first time when I forgot that it was animation, and I was just like, wow, Woody is feeling some emotion. He's feeling some pain, and I got a little verklempt over Woody. And I realized that's because the eyes had these little eye darts. As Woody was thinking, he had these little tiny eye darts, and I believe the animator that did that was Mark Oftedale. I think, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was Mark Oftedale did that. And I was just like, that's what I want to do. Because I'd always had an acting background. I was the star of the school play when I was in 6th grade. So I always took to character, and that's why I like character animation. And so seeing Toy Story made me realize that my future was going to be in the computer graphics realm. And of course, I'm walking around Cal Arts saying, abandon 2D, it's dead, do 3D. And people, I'm the pariah, they're like, get him, you're full of crap, Murphy, yeah, get out of here. And I didn't make a lot of friends that year because I've also had a very good business mind, and I just recognized that it was cheaper and easier to do CG animation. Anybody that wanted to be an animator, that had this amazing dream, could do it. Before you had to draw really well, and I wasn't the best drafts person, but I knew acting, and I knew timing, I knew animation, and so CG basically let me do that. And because of that, I mean, it's such a great industry. And then after that, so we fast forward a little more, and I graduated from college, but I had this 2D film, and I realized I needed, and it was unfocused. I didn't understand branding or marketing yet. So I wanted to do everything. When you're a young artist, you want to do it all, right? And I realized the only way that I'm going to get hired is if I'm razor focused on what I want to do. And I wanted to be a character animator. And that wasn't my ultimate long-term goal in life, but that was my first step to getting into the industry. So I determined that I needed to make a film, but I only had a couple of months to do it. And at this point, I graduated Cal Arts. And I, again, it was before the computer, so I couldn't just get, Maya and a laptop and just do it. I had to be physically in Cal Arts with the animation disc, with the down shooter, with the paper. I had to be there. There's no other way around it. So I actually broke into the school. My friends would like let me in. They give me the card key, and I was homeless, and I was sleeping upstairs in the cubicles, and I was making this film that was just a minute and a half. It's just one character, pure acting, very simple, because I wasn't the best drafts person, but I designed a character that played to my strengths. And a lot of people play to their weaknesses, and they try to bite off more than they can chew. And I was like, my back was against the wall. I literally had about $15. I was eating, Doritos and drinking out of the drinking fountain. That was about it. And I remember one day I hear footsteps. It sounds very authoritative, and the curtain opens, and there's the head of the animation department, and he looks very fierce, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been busted. I'm trying to hide, and of course you're in an empty cubicle, there's nowhere to go. I'm crawling under the animation desk, and he goes, Mike, I need to have work with you. And I'm thinking, oh crap, he's gonna kick me out. And I'm like, I have like one more week and I'll be done with my film. And he's like, I just want to let you know that we really support what you're doing, and we love that you're passionate, and you're welcome to stay here for as long as you want. You go, dude, just finish your film. I'm like, thank you. So I finished my film, and at that point, I applied to all these studios. It was a 2D film. I applied to all these studios and to do 3D though. And they're like, wow, we want to hire you for 2D. And I went, I don't want to do 2D. I don't believe in that anymore. I want to do 3D. And they're like, well, sorry, kid. Sorry, you're a 2D animator, not a 3D animator. And you're going to find this in your life. People are going to tell you, you're this, and you're not that. You're anything you want to be. You got to follow your passions and your goals and your heart. And so even though I had offers to go, my dream was to be an animator and to work in the industry, and now I had offers to do it, and I'm literally turning them down because it's not my goal. It wasn't what I believe my path in life was. So I'm telling my parents this, and my dad's like, you idiot, bro! It's like, you get the money and run. And I'm like, no, I got to do what I got to do. So luckily I managed to get a job working at Rhythm and Hues. Not actually working there, but in there, they decided to bring me on and train me, and that's a whole different story for a whole different day. But they brought me in, they trained me on the computer, and the day my training ended, they had to lay me off because they didn't, at that point, have any work. They're like, we brought you on because we saw your 2D, we loved you, we want you part of our team, but we just don't have any work. We can't pay you. We can't lay somebody else who's been here 4 years off. We just hired you, so sorry, you're on the bottom of the list. You got to go. And I was like devastated. But luckily, and this is one of the things I teach about, I knew a little bit about interpersonal relations, and I was really cool with the people in the training facility. They were all my friends. And the industry is really small. So all of those people, all the training facility people, they called all the trainers at all the other studios. So I get laid off, and literally an hour later, I have Pixar, Warner Brothers, DreamWorks, ILM, they're all calling me up and flying me to their studios. So that week, I'm just on this blitzkrieg of flying all around the state of California on job interviews, and by the end of the week, I have a job offer to work on Iron Giant at Warner Brothers, Toy Story 2 at Pixar, and Star Wars Episode 1 at ILM. I mean, now I have a problem. Right? Which one do I pick? Oh my gosh. So that's where I really looked into my heart of hearts, and I went with Warner Brothers, and that's what started my career. And of course, my whole career I've been very strategic, and there's been ups and downs, and that's what I teach. This was just a truncated version of that, but you have to understand business if you want to make it in this industry, because it's very competitive. There's a lot going on. And if you don't have those goals in mind, you're going to get sidetracked. And there were a million times I could have fallen off the path, but because I knew where I was going and I believed in myself, I was able to get there. That's the first thing that I want people to learn from me. The second thing is because I'd made friendships, because I added value to people, because I'd throw parties and I'd invite people, or people's birthday, and I'd give them a little, I'd buy them a cupcake at lunch and bring it to them. I do little things that were nice. It's not rocket science, but being appreciative of people and showing, giving them value and saying, hey, I don't want anything from you, but what can I give to you? That makes an impression. So I didn't have to go to these people and say, can you please call your recruiter friends at Pixar and ILM and show. They just did it. They didn't even tell me. They're like, hey, I made a call to Pixar. I sent your stuff up, and they want to fly you up. Are you free Tuesday? And I was like, what? So it's very important to just remember that this is a very small industry, and all the jobs you're going to get are contingent upon the relationships you have. It's that simple.